Hello, welcome to episode 181 of the Low Code Campfire. This is the episode for Friday, February 7, 2025. I am Dale Warner, Head of Support for PlantNap, joined capably by Patrick Anderson, Technical Success Manager for PlantNap, and we will be with you for this next hour or so. Low Code Campfire is an event that we do once a week, most weeks, and we get together, share our low coding challenges and experiences, and maybe get a few questions answered. So please, if you're watching this in replay, we encourage you to come join us during the live event if at all possible. Bring something to show, and it's a good group. All skill levels are welcome. We record all of them, put them out on YouTube at youtube.com/plantanap. So lots and lots of good content out there. We run this agenda week by week. We say hello because we're a friendly group, and then we'll go around the campfire. We always do first call and anything you submit in advance. But then after that, it's a little bit free form, but we cover contributions to our shared website or things that are going on within the community. After a while, an hour or so, we go into our Afterglow segment. That's where we turn the recording off and hang out for a few more minutes and then just enjoy each other's company on a personal level. Or, yeah, come join us for that part too. Um, you can submit questions and topics in advance, either by using this QR code, or you can send an email to support@plantanap.com. I'll get that and we'll put them on the list. If you do submit things in advance, oftentimes I have a few minutes to research and maybe we'll have part of an answer before we get going. So with this, hello all, welcome.
Good
Hello,
morning,
good
all.
morning. Good morning.
Morning, Dale.
Hello. All right. Did somebody come with a first call? All right. While you're thinking about that, of course, I always have a few things prepared, so we'll get into that as well. But um, again, if you have something, love to start there.
Hey, Dale, Jerry here. I
Yes,
got
sir.
one for you. Not a problem, just more of a uh, going forward. Dennis and I have successfully brought our largest client up to 1.26. You cannot imagine how happy we are right now to be
Yeah.
beyond that. You know how many years we put into this little project, and uh, and so we're just going through the growing pains of what's for the others that don't. This is an evolution from probably the earliest days of DNN Sharp. And so it's had its challenge. Here we are, we have arrived. And my first quick question is listings module, legacy display versus data table display. As you can imagine, all of our stuff would have been running on the legacy version. And the word legacy kind of implies that it's old and it might. So I'm one of the first things I'll be doing is converting off the legacy to the data table version. Um, would you concur that that's the right thing to do? Legacies kind of means that maybe we're not going to keep supporting that forever and ever, and that's how we should do our listings now is through the data table.
Yeah, I think so. And let me give a first answer, and then Patrick will fill in the gaps where I've fallen short.
Okay.
The legacy view, and I suppose I could bring it up while I'm talking here. The legacy view is based in Bootstrap 3.
Hmm.
Yes.
The data table
That's
view
correct.
is based in Bootstrap 5. Bootstrap 3 has been around for a long, long time, and so over time, our plan is that, excuse me, I think our normal support policy is that we're supporting things 1 year back. Bootstrap 3 was replaced quite a while back. So at some point, we could remove support for Bootstrap 3. So yes, this may eventually go away, and we encourage you to go to. Um,
But
And
yeah, and that's
the
kind of how I saw it, just as a good programming practice to go
but
that
the
direction.
I
Go
think
ahead,
that
Patrick.
the most important consideration though is does the
the skin that you use, does it have Bootstrap 5? Because that's one of the major changes is that we don't previously Bootstrap 3 could be included through the settings tab as to load on the page, but we don't do that anymore with Bootstrap 5. It relies on Bootstrap 5 being included by something else on the page, and that is your skin.
Okay, so Patrick, to your point, I understand, and Dennis and I were having this talk this articulate that to him. We definitely are Bootstrap 5, and we
Okay.
definitely want to get as far away from Bootstrap 3 as and forget it ever happened at this point. And so that's the direction we're headed. Do I remember a conversation on one of our shows like this where Plant App was a little bit more hard coded, tied to the bootstrap of our own, and then suddenly we now rely on the bootstrap of whatever your skin is. Does that make any sense? Is because we
Hmm.
are Bootstrap 5 on our skin. It's Ozone 2 for those that know what that is from Easy DNN. And and that's what we're looking for is just for Plant App modules to play nice with our themes bootstrap. And so I'll let you comment on that. That I think that's a huge thing for those of us that are finally have transitioned over the 1.19 version ish up through to 1.26 because I do remember Patrick 1.20 to 1.26 was almost experimental with Bootstrap. Every update was a major change with how we dealt with Bootstrap. So where do we stand today?
There's still, I mean, it still can be challenging, no question about that. But if you already have Bootstrap on there, that's better. I think that sometimes themes uh will you know modify some of the classes to the theme, and
Yeah.
that can cause some problems. And maybe somebody else on the call who's experienced that might speak to it better. But um, for the most part, I think that you should it should be pretty good. In fact, I think another one of our clients uses something from EasyDNN, and I believe it might be Ozone, um, and uh, and it works pretty well for them.
Yeah, I can see where maybe changing where the classes have been modified by the theme developer, but they allow us to modify their classes. In other words, there's some type of a tool or an amenity that lets you change what different buttons look like, what different links look like. And I think what you're telling me is that Planta app is listening to the themes bootstrap built inside it anymore. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I think that's right.
Okay. Well, I think we're headed that way. I see Dale's headed this other way. My final question after we look at this data tailworks legacy view, Patrick, is going to be our website right now has all the red ink all over it saying Bootstrap 3 and Bootstrap 5 running, and you need to do
Right.
something about that. I'm going to lean on, maybe not on this topic, but I'm going to lean on everybody just to kind of help me get through that. I want Bootstrap gone. Bootstrap 3, I want it to disappear from my life if possible.
Right. So those messages will be there as long as, for one thing, that you're using the legacy view in listings, and if you and also in forms, you need to make sure you're using uh, the Bootstrap 5
So,
uh,
understood.
there. Yeah. And so once those are corrected, and you shouldn't be seeing those anymore. And those are only there for administrators. So and you probably
Yeah,
know. Yeah. Yeah.
very aware of that.
Yeah.
I'm heeding it as a warning, and it's like something I need to pay attention to. On one particular page, my form is running in Bootstrap 5, and my grid is running in um, Data Grid, so it should be running in Bootstrap 5 too. But I still have that red ink showing up, and Dennis and I are suspicious of old
Maybe
old themes that were installed years ago are still lingering out there somehow.
that's possible. Do you have a search input from Search
I
Boost
do.
on the page? Yep,
No,
that
well,
might.
I don't know about search boosts. I'm just saying that my listing has the ability to search. That's all.
No, yeah, I meant the your main site search at the top of the page. Is there a search input? Because that can cause the error also
Okay,
if
we'll get
you're
more.
still using an old an old search input.
Okay. We'll definitely
So,
research that. What do you got, Dale?
Patrick, one thing we noticed though is when we have the grid set to table view, um, and we know that we're on a Bootstrap 5 page, it messes with our menus. Like we have some long submenus, and you go to the menu will pop up, then you go to click on something down the list, and your menu goes away.
Let me articulate it. We've kind of jumped all over the place and left poor Dale behind. Patrick, we'll circle back to this, but our Ozone 2 theme menuing system, not PAA, if it has a drop down menu, just a classic menu. If it drops down and lands over top of a PAA listing in data table mode, it shuts our menu off. It literally closes the menu. So a menu that is hanging down below your screen and you're using the down arrow to scroll down to it, the second that PAA grid comes in behind that menu, it shuts the menu off. So my point is not how to fix that on this call. We obviously have Bootstrap issues all over the place, and we're just going to lean on our group here to help us get cleaned up. And I think if we start cleaning, issues will just kind of match.
So, couple of thoughts. We talked about this, about the conversion stuff in some of these older episodes, 86 and 84, and so those might be useful for you to play back.
Okay,
The
noted.
the with regard to the red ink that you're talking about, that happens anytime that if you have a when when a listing is in legacy view, that means Bootstrap 3. When it's in data table view, that implicitly is Bootstrap 5. So your view, your listing is either in Bootstrap 3, Bootstrap 5. If you have forms on the page, we explicitly in the settings you can choose 3 or 5. And so you're going to want to, it's kind of a combination of you want to get everything consistent. So if you should be able to, if you have a Bootstrap 5 theme, to go into all the forms on the page and switch it to Bootstrap 5, go into the listings and switch it to data table. And at that point, the red ink should disappear. If it doesn't disappear, look deeper, I would say, into one of two things. If there are other modules on the page, for example, you might have a form on a page that isn't doing anything. It's there and it's maybe you didn't remember that you placed it or it's not doing anything for you, but if it's still in, if the form is there and it's in Bootstrap 3, it would be loading Bootstrap 3 onto the page. And so that red ink is a message that says, hey, you've got Bootstrap 3 and Bootstrap 5 on the page.
Yes.
So look for in terms of all the modules, make sure that all the modules that are there are choosing
Absolutely.
Bootstrap 5.
Absolutely.
The
We
other
understand that, and it's that time of life where we'll start digging through this page by page and correcting that. Dale, to your point on that, I'm not sure that this is relevant, but we have found in the past where we've deleted modules off the page. Maybe it's an action form and we deleted it, but the recycle bin had not been cleared. And we were still getting weirdness as if it was still there, but it's not there. And that's not necessarily on this Bootstrap issue, but in past DNN installations, we have found that until we empty the recycle bin, there's still reminiscences of that code out there that was creating conflict for us. And so I don't know if that would be relevant or not. Dennis, that'd be a super easy thing to fix. We just recycle bin and see what comes out.
Yeah.
But Dale, I'll shut up now and let other people let some of the customers
I
talk.
want to touch on a couple more of the
Sure.
things that you mentioned. If the if after you've gone through our modules and you've got all the settings consistently to Bootstrap 5 and you're still seeing a message that Bootstrap 3 and 5 are both there, then it might be being loaded by something else. I mean, you can tell whether Bootstrap 3 is being loaded, for example, by looking at um, your inspect console and looking at the if you, for example, look at the elements and do a search for Bootstrap, you'll start to see, for example, this is clearly Bootstrap 5 that's being loaded, and you might see some Bootstrap 3 things being loaded. And so then it becomes a little bit of a hunting game to figure out what's loading it, right? Um, our modules will do it if you've got the template Bootstrap 3 selected or legacy view selected, but there could be other things that are loading it that could be part of your theme. It could be an explicit, um, for example, there are events where you can load JavaScript onto a page or something that you're loading loads that. So look to see if something if it's not the modules that we selected, look to see how to get where Bootstrap 3 is coming from. The other thing that you mentioned where you've got a menu overlapping listings, and so it's like a Z order problem, I think is what you're looking at. And so that might be something that you're going to have to handle through CSS. If you um, if you inspect a menu and actually I shouldn't have gotten rid of that, but when you in our case with this menu, it's appearing over the top of the listing as you would expect it to, so that you can navigate it. But depending on the settings on your menu, and I can probably illustrate this, if we look at, it's a little bit harder to find them. Let's see if I can, I don't know how to change my focus down to this thing. Let's try this. Okay. Um, the when the CSS related to a menu is going to have a lot of different CSS associated with it, and I think let me see if I can. I don't want to do that. We'll just edit this one. If you change the Z index will give you a different result. And so see how, for example, we can see description starting to show through here under Peter's name because of the Z order. And I think if I were to try and go down and pick this, the menu is going to disappear. It's the Z index of your menu might not be right. You want it to have a higher number than the listings module so that it appears at a higher level, and so when it's present, I would investigate Z index.
Absolutely.
And
I'm very aware of Z index, and
okay.
that's where my thoughts were taking me.
I, I've had some pretty good experience with if just interactively with that, changing the CSS, changing the Z index to a number that where that issue goes away. So interactively, you can find the problem or find the solution, and then it comes down to finding where to edit that to make it be a permanent setting.
Sure thing. Um, so we started this conversation on data table versus legacy view. I've almost forgotten where you and I were headed, Dale, but you were pulling up some screens and we were going to look at it. And we did ascertain my question that yes, data table is Bootstrap 5 and legacy view is Bootstrap 3. So I think the writing's on the wall exactly what I'm going to do. And which makes my next comment a little bit irrelevant. But if I am in legacy view and I'm doing an inline edit, I run into trouble. I fixed it by changing it to data table view and it ran fine.
So
Likely a bootstrap, but I'm getting an error message that says something about the HTML form is not accurate or something. But uh,
I think you, that warning, just to, okay, I think that warning message where both things are present on the page, it's not just a, uh, hey, you forgot to do something message. It's also those two things can conflict with each other. So making sure that you eliminate all those messages when
yes,
you get consistent on Bootstrap 5 and then test your functionality. And if you're having issues, then focus on it, right? Because if you have both Bootstrap 3, Bootstrap 5, maybe it's just as simple as resolving that to resolve the underlying issue.
is
Uh,
legacy view have merit? I mean,
yes,
that was actually one of the helpers on the development of that years ago, and we did a lot of work in the legacy view, and I still see all over the settings and listings, legacy view only, all this, all that. I mean, it just seems like we're pretty deeply invested in that, and
there,
I just wondered what your thoughts were about that.
sure. So there are a couple of things. One that you're talking about the messages and it says legacy only. And unfortunately,
Sure.
we got a little bit enthusiastic with putting legacy only on some of these things, and they're not legacy only. That if, for example, if you add a root CSS class here, it will still it applies to data table as well. So we have a little bit of mismarking going on. The other thing is that legacy view, there's some functionality that was done. Uh, data table does a good job of displaying rows as you would expect. Legacy view had the ability, and then let me see if I can remember. Oh, that's not cards. Got to turn data table off. Legacy view on. Looking at settings. Seems like
Drag
there's
and drop comes to mind.
I think drag and drop still works fine. I'm sorry that um, this is another one of those that um, let that the marking legacy only is not accurate. Drag and drop works for data
Good to
table,
know. Good to know.
but um, where there are templates, right? And I can't remember what I'm looking for here. That what I'm trying to say though is that
I think it's
uh,
in views.
thank you.
I, I, I think it's in views.
Ah, legacy view. Yeah, here we are.
Okay.
So we've got our templates. And in legacy view, there was the ability to define your own templates
Yes.
that were, I think, Razor based. Is that correct, Patrick? Um,
Yes, I think so.
and so you could come up with some pretty involved ways of displaying things that were and we're taking advantage of it. I think if you look at our community forum display of the conversation, that's a legacy view with a very custom template. Point is that that templating mechanism was not carried forward into um, the data table view. So there are some things that you could do, some of the very custom kind of templatized things that you cannot do with data table. So there's still reason to certain use cases where the legacy mode is still the right answer. But for the most typical data table will work.
So as a
Yeah.
good programming practice, I'm just going to start going through our website and attempting to get everything in HTML5 balance. And we will just see where that takes us. I know that's going to take some involvement of making sure that our theme is playing nicely, making sure that all of our forms are playing nicely. I did discover real quick, Patrick and Dale, that you cannot have two forms on the same page and one be Bootstrap 3 and one be Bootstrap 5. That will not play nice. Uh you will throw a plant and app error telling you not to do that.
There, we definitely, it's definitely a good idea to be consistent among our stuff. Some things will
Sure.
fail, some things will throw the red ink, but either way, it's you should be all one way or all the other.
All
Beyond
right.
all that, I want to welcome you to 126. Uh,
Huh.
um, there's a lot of good functionality in there that, excuse me, hopefully you'll get to take advantage of. But if nothing else, a lot easier to support when you're not 7 versions back.
Well, we did have a corporate powwow, and it was absolutely, I demanded it. We cannot wait 4 years to do upgrades again, ever. So
Yep.
these have to
Well,
happen real time.
yeah, and that
It's
one.
Jerry's fault, Dale.
It's actually the client's fault. And I yelled at him and said, guys, if you don't land this airplane, it's going to crash. I just have to tell you, you got to pull it in. We got to change the oil, and then you can go fly on for a while. And they
Yep.
just refused to land. And I just had to do an ultimatum on them. So, all right, no worries.
You know
I,
it
I was
that
going to
does bring.
say, go ahead.
I was just going to say it does bring up the classic dilemma. I've been on the other side of the fence, and when things are running along, you don't want to upset it, right? So running a few versions back feels like it's a fine thing. Well, there's security implications, there's staying current implications, and it only gets harder to jump 7 versions than it does. You always pay the price. It's just whether or not it's all at once or spread out.
I had a question.
Yes, sir.
Since upgrading to 126, in my admin logs, I see a lot of general exception errors that say anti-forgery validation failure. Why am I getting so many of those in, and what's causing that, in other words?
Um,
I
I,
think,
I don't, Patrick, were you jumping in?
yeah, I think that's maybe I'm not sure actually, but I think it has to do with when somebody has an open session and they their session times out and they refresh a page
Hmm.
with a listing on it. I think,
I could chime in a little bit here.
yeah.
Um, I had that happen myself, and I looked into it quite a bit, and it turned out that in my internal links, like from one page to another, or on a form that linked to another page in the same site, I had been jumping between the www reference and the one about the www, and in multiple circumstances, they are not the same site. The browser doesn't consider it to be the same site. And so if a user
Sure.
logged in on one, and yet we have then pushed them over or linked them over to the other, then the proper being logged in then is now broken as far as the browser is concerned. It's like you think you're logged into this site, well, you're not. You're logged into some other site. So I think that happened to me when on a form I would have them come back from PayPal and have them come back to the www version when they were on the non version, things like that. So you have to, I would recommend that you take a look at your internal linkages and be consistent. Give that a try. That's what I found out.
Okay.
Dennis, that sounds like something where if we are sending a transaction to Authnet for billing and then we provide them a return URL back to where we are, maybe we should visit that and see if there's
Yeah.
anything
Well,
that's
all of our pages are secure pages. I don't set up any page unless it's set up for secure using SSL. So there could be some of the forms, like you say, like when we return from Offnet that we need to look at those links and verify that they're getting returned back to the HTTPS page, not the,
Then it's just
I think what Mark was headed on was it's not just so much we're crossing secure and not secure. It's whether we're saying www.planetmarketing or are we saying just Planet Marketing. That I Mark, I don't mean to step on you, but I think that's where he was headed on this, that
yeah,
it
that's
triggers the browser to think that it's different.
okay, I see.
And then, so those sound like two great places to start. And then if that doesn't solve anything, open a ticket.
Yeah,
Take a look.
okay,
And it'll be kind of like attach the logs and talk about the
yeah.
what you know, what you've tried, that kind of thing. But sounds like a good place to start.
Careful, Dale. I'm bad to defer responsibility to you, so don't encourage us, okay?
Hmm.
I didn't say I was going to
But
work on it. I just said you
you,
submit a ticket.
you got to start weaning us just a little bit and let us take care of ourselves, or we're never going to grow up, you know?
All right, that was a very good first call. What else have we got going on?
Hey, I have a quick question. On a form, I'm I had forms set up so the fields are when you do the layout, they're adjacent to each other, right? And recently, relatively recently, I've noticed that the forms, the uh, entry areas of the forms are butted up against each other, and there's no space between them. I've not found. I suppose I could go into the each field and add a space or something, but is there a way to set the whole form to give a buffer? In settings, I've done the played with a um, loose spacing, so on and so forth, and then I've also put in just played with the whole thing. Have not really been able to find the magic sauce to make that happen. Anybody else have seen this?
Well, on the settings there, normal, loose, and compact, that's talking about the fields themselves, not if you've got two forms on the same page that are next to each other.
No, I'm sorry. In the same form. So let's say I've
Okay,
got two fields that are, one's two columns, the other's 10 columns, but they're right beside each other. When you look at them on screen, they are literally touching each other where you'd like to have a little visual space. You know what I mean?
you should be able to adjust that with your layout, shouldn't you?
I think I should. But
that's just
Unless
so
unless something's changed in the newer version of PAA.
that's where I was possibly heading with this. Am I missing some subtle change that's not being properly accounted for in what I'm doing from a layout standpoint?
So, are you using a custom theme, your own theme?
No, nope. Plant an app. Everything's stock.
Okay. So, let's do a, let's see if we can reproduce it here real quick. Do,
Matt, is this happening um, just on one site, or just on one page, or can you narrow it
No, it's
to one instance
no,
of
it's pretty consistently happening across multiple, all of the forms that I'm seem to be working on.
um, well, where I'm going with that is it sounds to me like there might be a class in a CSS container that is broken somewhere in the middle, and so the remaining classes are not being read. Like
Okay,
you
maybe.
know, CSS is not doing everything it was doing before. And for me, because sometimes I'm a little sloppy, I broke a class and everything that comes after that down the page in the class sheet
Hmm.
isn't
Yeah.
happening.
Okay. Let's see what Dale comes up with. Oh, so you've got a nice space there. That's what I'm looking for.
so yeah, out of again, I shouldn't have any special styles that are impacting that. Um, if they're not, um, if they are butted up against each other, like we've got here, doing an inspect and seeing um, what CSS is in effect might
Mm-hmm.
give you a
It may
clue.
be the settings, Dale, that you went into the settings and set it up. It may be that Matt is not using the settings that you just set up, though.
Could be, and I was kind of interested to see if we refresh this, if we get a different. I just went from normal to loose. I don't see too much difference in that.
Dale, try this. Try putting the label align inside. See if that changes anything.
Sure. I just did loose and compact and didn't see anything, so that was kind of interesting. So let's go to absolutely. We'll go to inside and normal.
No, it still looks good.
Are you using text boxes, or is there another field type that?
Well, I've got a drop down on the left and a text box on the right.
And let's change that.
I think you'll find your answer when you inspect.
Yeah.
No, that looks good too.
Matt, in your drop down, do you have some long choices?
No, it's actually, it's basically looks like first item, second item as far as choices go.
Okay.
So
Yep.
Dale, can you pull up your settings on on that form? I just want to make sure. Padding 0, inside, 3 of 12, normal. Yeah, I'm,
Do you have a root class?
nope, no root class. Can you scroll to the bottom? I'm
Sure.
sorry. Oh, keep going. All right. So you're including Bootstrap. I'm including, not including Bootstrap, but it's a Bootstrap 5 layout. Just for the heck of it, humor me if you would try that and see what happens. Nope.
And then, are you
Hmm.
using any of this field UI settings?
No, I am not.
Yep.
Binding. I'm just using some bindings and one
Of course,
validator, but no.
Dale, you may need to clear your cache to really make some of these changes you're making show up. Because I don't know what browser you're using here, but boy, Chrome has really got aggressive with their caching.
Hard reload is it's taking longer than I would expect.
You blew it up.
Um,
Well, remember you just wiped out the cache for all those tabs you got.
yeah. Um, but I think, Mark's suggestion of looking at the CSS, um, if you have you might try setting up a page that just like what I just did to illustrate the thing and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess for what it's worth, I'm using the default BS5 container type. So making sure that that's the container type that you've got selected.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really understand at all what's going on with, although I guess on our, could be something unrelated as well. We had some issues on our trial server earlier that was, somebody was running 80% CPU and maybe that's back on again. So that could be what's going on.
It seems like it might be. Oh,
Finally
you're
coming
back.
back. But
Yep.
yeah, no change. Okay.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
you're um if you can't get to the bottom of it and you want to open a ticket and um if the URL is external, something that I could look at, I'm happy to stare at it with you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
This were on my site, it would most likely because I caused it with a custom class, and I didn't do it right.
Yeah.
I applied
I
too
mean,
much
if I,
thing.
yeah, I have not, my knowledge, done that, but
All right.
I have a suggestion.
sure, please.
What I found this out the hard way when we were doing I'm sorry, Matt, this is not pertaining to your question, but uh, this is pertaining to when you're doing your upgrades. You know, since we were way down at 1.17, we had a lot of upgrades to do to get to 126. And the one thing that I found out the hard way was that every time you do an upgrade, the pages in under the configuration menu all come in as non-secure. Well, like I said, we don't have any non-secure pages on our website. Everything has to be secure. And at first, we thought, man, what's wrong? The pages aren't showing up. And then it dawned on us, I got to go reset those pages every time you bring in a new version of PAA. You got to go change your settings to flag it as a secure page. So if in your meetings, maybe you could address that and come up with a better solution than that.
Yes. So there are a number of pages under the configuration menu that are, we call them our low code pages, where we've done the work using our tool rather than hard coding them within the product. And so like the users page is all served. If we were to look at the page itself, our users come from, there's forms and listings that are on the page. And these do get rebuilt from time to time. We delete out the old ones, bring them back. And I think that's a very good point that we should bring them back in the same way that they were. So you're saying they're coming in non-secure.
Right.
Okay. Patrick, do you mind taking a note on that one?
Sure.
All right. Good stuff. I've been talking for a couple of weeks about that I was going to go to DNN Summit, and I did go to DNN Summit, and just wanted to share that I have presented virtually in these last couple of years because of course, it was all virtual due to COVID. And I had never gone to DNN Summit before when it was a live event. This year it was a hybrid event, so about half the people were present, half the people were online. And I just want to say I personally got a lot more out of it because I was there, getting to sit and have casual conversations with people and uh, well, and coming in third in DNN Jeopardy, that was a lot of fun too. So there's the fun aspect, there's the adult beverage aspect, but mostly just being able to talk to people and um, advance the conversation. So if you can ever go, I mean, I'm over Vegas. I don't, and it's not really that I want to go places, but to be able to be in the same room and actually have the conversation, it was really worthwhile. Anyone else with comments on either virtual or hybrid DNN Summit?
Yeah, this is my first DNN Live Summit going, face to face, and I'd been to the one last year, virtual, and no comparison. This is just so much better, face to face. Like
Yep.
you said, walking around, meeting people, saying hello, and getting to know people, as well as physically being able to walk from room to room. That was really good. The whole thing was good.
For me, there's several interesting things. One, I went to some sessions that you have to. There were three tracks, and trying to pick, you know, maybe this one was over my head, and that one was seemed a little bit too introductory. And yet, when I got in there, I went to one that was over my head, and it was, and so it was very hard to keep up. But it's nice to know that people are thinking about the things that they're doing and trying to make things easier for other developers. And then I went to one that was more on the introductory level, and I thought, okay, this is going to be not going to be as useful of my 45 minutes. And it turned out to be really good. The people that put together the presentations are really thoughtful and have good things to add. And so it, it just the whole thing was a good experience. Poor Mark was there and attended and was doing so much of the work that I'm not sure he got to see any of the sessions.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I did see the sessions in the room that I was doing the moderation on, but honestly, I didn't get to pay attention very much because I was pushing buttons and answering emails and stuff that were related. But I'm glad to hear the good reports from you guys. Yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into that, and we want to try really hard to make it rewarding. Sounds like it was.
Yeah, I would agree, and quite frankly, and I'm not just simply trying to plug here, but Dale, your sessions both were informative and entertaining. Well done.
Well, thank you. Um, there is, under normal circumstances, there's this, a little bit of anxiety as a presenter. Is this going to come off okay? Trying to do hybrid presentation, so it comes out online and in the room becomes a little bit more of a challenge. You get 5 or 10 minutes to set up and maybe the technical part works or it doesn't. There were certainly people that struggled more than I did trying to make their hardware work. So that's I don't know how to make that area any easier for the presenters, but it is an area of struggle. And I say under normal conditions because we had a power failure, and I'm not sure if I have the story straight. There was like somebody that messed up with a power station, and it ended up knocking out like half the power or a quarter of the power to the Cosmopolitan. And so some of the room outlets would work and some wouldn't, and no place to plug in. And my wife was upstairs in the dark, and yeah, it was an odd circumstance. And you just have to roll with it, right? Still have things, still got to hit the schedule.
Just glad we weren't on the elevators. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
that would have been bad.
Yep. Well,
Was for a number of people. They were stuck there for hours in the elevator.
look, my wife actually got on the elevator because she was afraid of being didn't want to stay in the dark. Didn't see much use in that, and I I was kind of surprised that she did that. But walking 31 floors wasn't very attractive either.
Well, better down than up.
So it hasn't been announced where it's going to be, but it probably well, I don't have any clue, but hopefully it'll be a good one again next year. Anyway,
Yeah, talk that I participated in just after the summit was over was that yes, we do want to do this again, and we're looking for some alternative locations, possibly some less expensive ones.
this is true. It's amazing, and I of course everything goes up everywhere, but it felt like you couldn't get any kind of a meal in Vegas for under $20. So
Hmm.
that part of it. Again, I'm over Vegas, but the summit was great. Don't have time to go through all of them, but I want to point out that there is a whole batch of Campfire contributions that were added here. If you go to campfire.com, campfire.planetapp.com, there is a summit section. This probably will, I'll leave it for a little while, but it's just the contributions that were added specifically for summit. And I'll run through what they are, and then if there's anyone you want to take a minute and explore, I'll be happy to do that. Otherwise, we can go into more in depth on another day. But have a tool that compares two folders and returns a JSON. Um, I have a tool that uses Robocopy, the robust file copy, to both make you can use it to make a copy of a file of a folder, so a file system, and then the restore part of it um, returns your original back to what the backup was, which is to say, but it's very efficient, right? Robocopy has some great options that let you um, say that, yeah, if any folders exist on the left side that don't exist on the right side, delete them. And so it just brings everything back, but it's very, it's like anything that's the same, just, it doesn't touch any of that. So it's just incredibly fast. So, shows a way of taking advantage of that. I made a PowerShell script to do a backup and restore in SQL, so that could be handy if you. And again, you probably have ways to do both of these things, but by doing them as PowerShell scripts, what I'm hoping to do is be able to put these on a management page so that you could do an upgrade and then click a button and revert back, both a DNN upgrade or a Plant and App upgrade or anything else. So. I mentioned this last week, but we have now a too sexy Plant and App repair script, which if you have both of those things installed and you're having issues, usually the issue is a yellow screen of death. But the PowerShell script may resolve the issue. We're finding it as long as you have Plant and App version 126.299 or higher, and too sexy 18 and higher, that this script resolves the issues. So anyway, there's ongoing incompatibility that is just the way that web config gets done between these two products, and this resolves it. I had a nice little utility. I think it's nice that you can put your site into maintenance mode, and so long as you have the appropriate admin access cookie on your browser, you get to access the site. If you don't have the cookie, you get a maintenance message, HTML display with a countdown when the site's likely to come back up again and things like this. So as an administrator, you can control the experience for, your team gets a maintenance message, and I mean, your users get a maintenance message. You and your team can access the site as normal. So that's kind of a fun one. The SQL that's necessary to find out when people last changed their passwords or last logged in. If you want to manage, you have to get a password change every 3 months, or they've never changed their password in 10 years, that kind of thing. Or people who haven't logged in a long time. There's nothing magical about this other than it joins through a couple of ASP.NET tables that just save you the time of figuring out how to get from point A to point B. Had one that being able to sort a DNN menu branch alphabetically, either ascending or descending, it's a problem that I face having many pages, like we do the contributions in see, I don't have it here, but if you've got a big long menu structure, being able to put them in alphabetical order just so that they're in some kind of sensical order, so that's useful. And then something that we needed internally that I exposed as a thing where you can compare two databases if you have a backup of a database and a production, for example, and it'll tell you which tables and which within each table what fields are the same or different or added, things like that. So you can verify, for example, if you did some work in one and you want to make sure did I remember all of my changes to be able to make sure that they get copied. So anyway, nice way to do comparison or to see what got installed on you, right? If you have a blank DNN and you install Plant an app, you'll be able to see all the tables that got added as a result of our product. You can do that with any product. So a whole raft of contributions. Any questions on that batch?
So
Okay.
Dale, a question actually on the maintenance mode.
Yep.
I think you um, that script can be adapted so that you could put a maintenance page like this sort of thing. Run the script from site A and put site B into maintenance mode
Um,
with some tweaking, I think.
sure, potentially. So it's a PowerShell script. If you so long as the PowerShell has access, and we can go look at it. The PowerShell, uh, part of what you, let's see, my enable script, it's right here. Part of what you fill in is the path to the web config. So if you have two sites on your server and you have access to the path for some other site, you could um, you can point it to that web config and then it will do the activity. So yes, absolutely, it could be one site impacting another. This particular thing uses URL rewrite, which is a feature that it's a very quick install, but you have to have it on your IIS server, and then it just adds a rule that says redirect if you don't have the admin access cookie. In my case, 123.4. If you don't have that, then you get redirected to the maintenance mode HTML page. And then in what I displayed, there was at Summit, you can add a cookie to a interactively in the browser, so you can do it that way. Again, my plan is that to have a maintenance mode kind of a page, and that the script would um, assign a random GUID, for example, and create a cookie for you, and then write the script out with that cookie. So kind of in a seamless way, you when you put it into maintenance mode, you get a very random, um, impossible to crack kind of a scenario where you have access and nobody else does. And if you want to hand out the cookie to somebody helping you, you could do that. But um, then by default, they don't have access.
I got pretty good at that over the last 2 weeks.
You got pretty good at what?
At putting the site in maintenance mode where Jerry and I could still access it, but
Yep.
nobody else could get to it.
Yep. And there's lots of ways to do that. This method leaves the site where it is. It stays under the same URL. Other methods, you work with IIS to flip it to where you've got it running under a subordinate, a different URL, so that only you know the access to it and can use it, and the other site responds back. So your original site is essentially a temporary site. There's different ways to approach it. This one was just I'm trying to illustrate a method where the it stays under the same domain so that you don't get into, for example, in our case, our licensing is very much dependent on your domain name. And this way, the domain name doesn't change. You don't need an extra license, and your users are still being denied, and you easily have access. So it's
Yeah. Dale, where were you a couple of weeks ago, man? I needed
it's here for your next time.
that. I'm glad you did this. I like this, especially that way I don't have to call you and say, I need a temporary license.
And, we're happy to help, but it's easier if you maintain your own destiny. That's what we're trying to do. Okay. All right, that's our hour. I'm going to just arbitrarily call it, and anything else that's left over we can handle again next week. Um, Thanks for joining us for Low Code Campfire. We will do it again next week, and we'll talk then.